Now that we have a basic walk cycle done for the lower half of Moon, what we're going to do now is work on the upper half of his body and then fine tune the lower half to make it work well together. When we walk, we are actually quite out of sync. Our arm swings, our hip movements, and that sort of stuff are not directly synchronized with our feet motion the way that we're going to first animate Moon. It's easier to animate everything perfectly in sync and then move it out of sync afterwards. So watch and we'll make that the rest of that work. First thing you're going to do, let's work on the hands. Let's get the hands in position. Click on the back of the hands first and make sure the hands are not in their jazz hands way open position. We're going to take them into kind of a little bit more of a curl position, which is more natural for how somebody would have their hands when they're relaxed. Our tendons are tight enough that when our hands are relaxed, they're always in kind of a cupped shape. This one over here, something similar. And then we're going to take the hands down. We're going to move them down to about here. And then we're going to move the hands inward here and here. And then obviously we're going to have to rotate those hands down a little bit as well. So we can do most of this part of the thing kind of visually here. Let's bring those hands down just a touch more. So let's see, we're going to have those rotations on the hands somewhere near that minus 90 degrees. Then we're going to take this one here and have it somewhere near 90 degrees to get it to rotate back down. Let's take these translates down to about the same number here. Translate y, let's say -2, maybe minus 2.2. Bring down a little bit more. That's a fairly natural position to have the hands in. Currently, let's see, minus 1.4. We're going to take the hands and move the hand for the foot that is not forward. The hand that's in the back has a hand. The foot that's in the back has a hand that moves forward, and the side that has a foot forward has a hand that's moved back slightly. And this translate Z, just like the feet, is what's going to control that as well. We're going to take this hand back maybe minus 0.6 units right here, minus 0.6. And this hand up here, we're going to move up to 0.6, so it's forward just slightly. That being its initial position here on keyframe 0, we're going to select both hands and hit S on the keyboard, go over to keyframe 24, hit S on the keyboard, and then we're going to come back to keyframe 12 and reverse those positions, moving this one back to minus 0.6 and this one forward to 0.6. Again, select both hands and on keyframe 12 hit S to set a keyframe. Now the hands will move alternately with the feet as they're supposed to. With the hands though, this simply moving them back and forth leaves the hands in an always pointing down motion. So what I need to do now is fix the rotation on each hand. So I'm going to take the rotation here for this hand when it's forward all the way and use the rotate tool to rotate it forward just slightly so that it's basically stays straight with the elbow when it's in each position that it's in. So on keyframe 0, I'm going to change my rotation to, let's say, 13 degrees. Right click key all, go to keyframe 24 and make that match. Rotate Y, I believe it was 13 degrees, right click key all. Over on keyframe 12 for that hand, actually straight up and down is a pretty good position for it. Now if we watch that hand from 0 to 24, it basically stays in line with where we want it. That keyframe 13, that rotation, let's see. Back to 13. That's about right. Okay, next hand. When it's in the back, we can leave the rotate Y at 0. When it's in the front on keyframe 12, though, we're going to want to rotate Y to be 13, minus 13 on this hand, and right-click Key All. So now our hands are going to look a little bit more natural. There. Now his hands are kind of on a wide stance right here. It may be that you want to move those in. I'm going to show you how to edit your graph editor when you have an animation you don't like. Right now this movement right here is the Translate X. So far I haven't adjusted the Translate X, but as you can see, Translate X has a red mark here, or the pink background. So I'm going to go to Windows, Window Animation Editors, Graph Editor, and under the Graph Editor, hit Translate X on both of those hands. Oops, I forgot to select both hands. Shift select both hands. And of course hold down Command and hit the other Translate X. So let's see, we got that, and Command, Translate X, hitting F on there. Those are the positions it's in. It's like one is at 1.4 something and the other one's at minus 1.4. So I'm going to delete that translation. Now I can adjust this number and maybe set it to 1. Nope. Minus, what's that going to be? Minus 1 for that hand. Oh, gotta select these hands one at a time. All right. 1.6. That brings it a lot closer. How about 1.8? 1.8 is nice because we're going to be pretty close to brushing our pant legs while we walk. So we're going to do 1.9. Too close, too much work. Let's do 1.8 there. Here again on this one, we're probably going to be minus 1.8, and that's about where we want to be. Let's hit play now. Now he moves his hands back and forth, but his shoulders, you'll notice, stay moving forward. So we're going to give his shoulders a slight roll, just like we did this on the hips. Take that connector right there and rotate it so that the hand that's forward is forward just slightly, ever so slightly. So it looks like we're going to have a 5-degree rotation there. Right click. I'm just going to do key selected. I only want to adjust that one. Try that. And then over here on 24, right click, key selected, and then of course on keyframe 12, we're going to go back a negative 5 degrees. Right click, key selected, and we'll take a look at how that looks now. So he's going to rotate back and forth a little bit. His shoulders are kind of high. I might even want to adjust the hand position. So I'm going to go here in between on this keyframe 6 and take his hands down a little bit, just a tiny little bit, maybe down there. I don't want his elbows to lock or come anywhere near locking, but I do want his hands to extend a little bit. So it gives the illusion that his hands are swinging on a pendulum more than moving back and forth robot-like. So moving those hands down, right-click, key all on both of those, or selecting both hands positions and hitting S on the keyboard. Now his hands are going to move up and down. His shoulders don't look quite as awkward. But I kind of think his shoulders are a little high anyway, so I'm going to droop those shoulders ever so tiny amount here. W. There we go. Just dropping those just a touch. And now let's take a look. Alright, now that we have that part, let's get his head moving. Generally consider that when we move our foot forward, the forwardmost foot, our head leans away from it, just slightly. Maybe 2 degrees, sure, not that much. Right click, we're not going to do anything else here, so we're just going to key select it right on the rotate Z. Going over here to keyframe 24, right click, key selected, and then on keyframe 12, we're going to do -2, right click, key selected. It's just going to give him a little bit of life in his head without it being too distracting. His head's going to bob back and forth just a little bit as he walks. Then we're going to take the and start offsetting things and getting him to work. Now the rotate Z is the only thing I'm doing here on purpose on that head, because we are going to animate other things in a different scheme than we did that one. So let's let's go and finish this guy up. To take the hips where we want them to be, our hips are going to rotate slightly ahead of our feet. And you can see that the hips are animated quite simply with 0, 12, and 24. I'm going to take the hip animation and move it. So what I do is I double click down here to select all of those keyframes. And then I'm going to right click, cut, and cut all of those keyframes out. And then I'm going to go back to keyframe -3. And then I'm going to right click, and then right click down here on keyframe -3 and paste it, and that way my hips are going to be slightly out of sync with the rest of it. Now you notice my hips are going to stop on keyframe 21 because currently the hips are only animated from 3 to 21, and then they're going to sit there for a split second and looking kind of funny before that. The next part of this walk cycle is getting him to move on the grid. And in order to get him to move on the grid, we're going to have to make him his walk cycle perpetual. Currently, it only works on just these 24 frames, and it will repeat. We need to make it move on forever. And what we're going to do, we'll start doing that with this item right here. We're going to go Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor. And as you can see, this is our rotation curve for that for those hips. I'm going to hit Curves, Post Infinity, Cycle. And what that'll do, that cycle will make it repeat no matter what, which is going to, in the scope of these few frames, I'm going to set this back to 0 here. Now you can see that his hips are slightly out of sync with the feet, and that gives him a little bit more motion in there. Now you may decide that, hey, I don't like it back quite 3 keyframes. I think that's too much. Let's try a different one here. You can adjust that amount. The further that distance there, the more he's going to wiggle his bottom, and he might have a little bit more of a feminine walk than you want him to, depending on what you're doing there. So I'm going to double click here, right click, cut. I'm going to go back to -1 keyframe. Now let's go to -2. Right click, paste, paste, paste. And that subtle little timing difference there is going to make it work going forward. So I have to go back, Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor, Curves, Post Infinity, Cycle. Setting this back to 0. Take a look at how that fits into our walk cycle in general. That looks pretty good. That's about what I want. Going to do the same thing with these 3 things. This one, and this one. Our hands are going to swing a little bit after we take our step. So we're going to move these keyframes to afterwards. Double clicking here, right click, cutting these keyframes out. These hands and these shoulders, I'm going to move them forward 2 keyframes. Right click, paste, paste. And of course I'm going to have to do that Post Infinity Cycle. So while I have them still selected, Window, Animation Editor, Graph Editor, Curves, Post Infinity, Cycle. And this time we're going to do Curves pre-infinity cycle as well, so that because this one begins later than the others. Then set it back to keyframe 0 there, we're good, and then we run our walk cycle. So that's all running a little bit out of sync there, and that's about what we want. We might have to tweak the arms a little bit, but that's pretty close.